Thank you, Mr. President. Before I invite Mr. Arvind to give his keynote address, can I request Mr. Ramkumar Shankar to present a plant to Mr. Datar and welcome him. A plant, a symbol of growth, prosperity, peace, and all that we require now.
This is a tradition, but we'll ensure that it reaches
I know I'm not doing justice in introducing Mr. Datar. I know I don't need to do that. But still, as a matter of courtesy, very briefly, I will introduce him. Maybe you can also see more details about Mr. Datar and his credentials here. Mr. Datar is a senior advocate, as we all know, who started his legal career in 1980. He has more than 30 years of practice at the Madras High Court and Supreme Court of India. He is predominantly engaged in matters relating to income tax, central excise, customs, and company law and other things. He has worked in a renowned solicitors firm in Mumbai, representing India's top corporate house in courts as well as in arbitration. He has been associated with the Additional Solicitor General of India in several landmark cases. He has authored several highly regarded legal commentaries and books. He has written over 300 articles in various professional journals, business, and daily newspapers. He appears before the Supreme Court of India in matters relating to constitutional, corporate, commercial, tax, and regulatory laws. He also appears as amicus curiae. Please confirm whether I am pronouncing it right, which means, I believe, friend of court. I know he is a friend of chamber also. Appointed by the Supreme Court and various high courts to assist the courts on matters and questions of constitutional and taxation laws. He has appeared before the Company Law Board, SEBI Appellate Tribunal, Customs Excise and Service Tax Appellate Tribunal, and Income Tax Appellate Tribunal in Chennai, Hyderabad, Bangalore, and Mumbai. I'll stop here. He is also a member of the Advisory Council of the Tamil Nadu government to develop a federal fiscal model. Is it still existing? Yes. So I think Mr. K.Vaitheeswaran also is there. So thank you so much for being here again, sir. Thanks once again. Please give him a welcome hand. Yeah, we would like to hear from you about what your impressions are on the budget, any surprises and shocks, any hits and misses, anything could have been addressed better, particularly in the backdrop of the economic survey from CEA released a day earlier. Pleased to invite you to give your keynote address and share your thoughts.
Good afternoon, everyone. My colleagues in the dais, ladies and gentlemen, it's great to be back at the Madras Chamber and also at a budget meeting. I think it's almost a decade since I participated in any budget seminar. Before I come to it, when I was driving down, I was thinking of speaking at this budget, and my mind went down memory lane. And I remember so many more budget meetings, and I really miss the presence of Mr. Rajaratnam, Mr. Narayan Swamy, my guru, Mr. Ramamani, whom we participated in so many budget seminars and things. So this is important. It's not just a ritual, but it's an important function where people get together and analyze the budget, analyze the provisions. Looking back, I must also thank you for the introduction. As I heard you say that the Madras Chamber protested against the income tax.
That's what I experienced.
Ironically, the best history of the Indian Income Tax Act came in the British Tax Review in 2014. A person called Wilson, I can send a copy to the Madras Chamber, she can circulate it. And when the income tax was first introduced, there was an outrage in the British Parliament. They said, because as you know, the first income tax was levied in 1812 by William Pitt the Younger to meet the Napoleonic cost of the Napoleonic Wars. And then they proposed to levy an income tax in India. And if you see the parliamentary debates which Mr. Wilson points out, he says income tax will never work. He uses the expression, it's like planting an English tree on Indian soil and it will never bear fruit. With all due apologies to those members of parliament 200 years ago, it has borne fruit, it has gone deep, and it's almost become like a banyan tree, multiplying with Vivas schemes and other provisions. And interestingly, you'll be surprised to note that the income tax rate was at 2% for people who earn 500 rupees per annum. And it increased to 3% if your income crossed 500. And the debates was an outrage that 3% is atrociously high and people will rebel and revolt. Little did we know that we'll come to 97% and then come down to more reasonable rates now. So much for Madras Chamber of Commerce. I thought I'd just mention this, but the article is excellently written. It analyzes the history of income tax. Just as a side bit, when I was a junior to Mr. Ravamani, he told me that in the earlier days, the Income Tax Act was administered by the collector. And the collector would go on camp, and he'd take on his horse and pitch a tent, and then he would call the people in the village, and he would look at you, and approximately from your dress, he would make out that you're a reasonably affluent man, a poor man, and so on. And he would tell you, okay, fine, 4 anna in rupaya, something like that, the collector in his British accent would say. It so happened, and this story was told by Mr. Ravamani to me, and it so happened that he found that person after person is wearing the same coat, a dirty, tattered coat. So he came out and he found that there was one man hiring the old coats at 1 paise or 2 paise per coat. Nobody beats the Indian jugaad, so this is the whole story. Now come back to today's budget. As all of us know, we were expecting a lot. There was a lot of unease with what was happening. Unemployment was growing, manufacture was going down, and one expected, and there was obviously a huge amount of unease among the middle class who could not meet the expenses. So I was expecting either a cut in the GST rates, though the GST Council, or I was expecting some relief, but this 12 lakh limit is quite a remarkable, brave step. Of course, there are the critics who will always find fault, and they say that this is not going to actually reach all the people and so on. But whatever it is, it will put more of disposable income into the pockets of people. I was just going through some of my old cuttings on the budget, and I find that every year one common thing is every industry leader praises the budget. I yet to see one industry leader criticize the budget is wrong. Everybody says fantastic. Apologies to you, but I'm just saying. But everybody, they got their own limitations, you see. So there is, and the opposition keeps on criticizing the budget. The current word is slam. Everything is slam. Supreme Court slams somebody, so-and-so slams somebody, budget is slam. So somewhere in between the pluses and minuses. I think the finance minister's job is the most thankless job. No matter what you do, you will displease somebody. So in the Great Balancing Act, I would dispassionately say that it is a good budget in the limited, tremendous constraints that were there. At the same time, what is important is what the budget has not addressed. Now you gave me a plant, which is more like a basket. And we have the word fiscal policy. And the late K.Vaitheeswaran told me that the word fiscal policy comes from the word fiscus. Fiscus actually is the Roman basket. And he told me that fiscus means a basket of flowers. So your budget is actually a basket of various entities which go up to make the budget for the year. Direct taxes, indirect taxes, revenue growth, bonds, etc., etc. Therefore, the budget must really address not only the immediate concerns, but what I find, if I have to find a fault, is there is no clear step-by-step goal to what we want to achieve. We talk of Viksit Bharat in 2047, and it's easy to say bandy of figures, 10 trillion economy, 15 trillion economy. Now, if you want to grow, double your economy, then if you're growing at 8%, then by the law of 72, at a rate of 8%, you will double in 9 years. So it is absurd. Even if you want to go from 2.5 trillion or 3 trillion to 6 trillion, it's going to take 9 years if you take 8% growth. You mentioned 6.5. I think India just can't afford to stay at 6.5. We have to be more ambitious and aim for double-digit growth. Otherwise, we will never do. The point I'm trying to make is we have to take note of the danger signs which require greater, deeper attention than the immediate concerns of the next election or what will please the middle class or what will please this sector or that sector. As I was coming down, I found that the rupee has now become 87 rupees to the dollar. It's a very serious sign. I won't be surprised if we touch 90 rupees in the years to come. That is one danger sign. Second danger sign is manufacture keeps on going down. FDI is drastically falling. what has the budget done to make India as an attractive investment destination? Perhaps Vikram and Vijayaraghavan will point out, is there any incentive? I personally don't think. We had 115 BAB, which provided a flat tax of 15% and 22%. But even that is riddled with so many complications. You see, the whole point is you are not willing to give something liberally. Everything is hemmed in with so many conditions, and there is one ground to disallow it or not. Like for example, if you are manufacturing steel under 115 BAB, and you put up a new plant, I think the deadline of 31st March has not been extended. Put up a new plant, then you get the benefit of this 15% or 22%. But there is a clause that if you have got a mine, if you are doing mining, you will not get the benefit. So if you are an integrated steel plant with a mine, you will not get the benefit. It makes no sense at all. Why can't you simply say that every company which sets up a factory after so and so date will get the benefit of a 15% flat tax? Mind you, there's a wonderful article I wrote about it many years ago. Estonia of all the countries started with a flat tax. From 77% they brought the flat tax to 11%. 77% to 11%. The annual collection went up 340%. Just 11% of income, no exemptions, nothing. Now 115 BAB was a step in the right direction that, okay fine, you choose. But I will take 15%, make it 22%. I don't want any other deductions. No chapter benefit, chapter 6A benefits, I just take 22. But then give it completely without any kind of hesitation. That's as far as the thing is concerned. The other point which I wanted to make, let me give you direct taxes first. One is, there is nothing in the direct taxes, as I see, which is an incentive to somebody to come and invest in India. I did a study of the taxes in China, Vietnam, Thailand and Malaysia compared to India. There are so many areas where we have to improve if you have to make it as an attractive destination. This China +1, we have missed the bus. People still don't want to come to India. But somehow we feel that we have got a big market, people will come. The reality is no. Unless we do proactive, I mean, you can't simply say, I'll make a TV which is 92.6 inches, who wants to buy can buy it. You must see what the market wants. If your market is a foreign investor, what does he want? What will he come to invest in terms of direct taxes? That has unfortunately not been addressed in the budget at all. The other major danger as I see, which is not part of the budget but which should have been addressed. People are complimenting the finance minister for fiscal prudence, keeping the deficit rate to 6.5%, and various figures are there. The danger is not the fiscal prudence. Today, in my view, the biggest danger is the freebie culture, which is going to hit you very, very badly. Do you know that today, 45.5% of the tax revenues of Punjab are given in freebies? 45.5% of the tax revenues go in freebies. Andhra has got 31%. Other states are equally in the 20, 30, 30%. Now, if you talk of fiscal prudence, no amount of budget economics, no amount of fancy sections are going to help if you're going to have this profligacy at the state levels. We thought that the BJP criticized it first, it would stop it, but it has also no option but to enter the fray. Just speak for a moment of this freebie culture. Tamil Nadu is the Gangotri of the freebie culture. We started with kudams and saris and dhotis. You read the judgment Subramaniam Balaji versus Union of India. I appeared in the case, I lost. And this was a lawyer from Madurai who took up this matter and protested against the freebie culture. The then DMK government started the thing of giving free color TVs. That was a big problem. So it was challenged in Madurai. It was dismissed. We went to the Supreme Court and it took me almost 40 minutes to get the matter admitted. And to the credit of Justice Balakrishnan, he admitted the matter and thought the danger of it. And I still remember, I've got the cutting somewhere. It was the day when Michael Phelps got 8 gold medals, and on the right hand side was the freebie announcement in Times of India. So both of us took headline that Supreme Court will examine the freebie culture. By the time the matter came for hearing, the AIDMK government come to power and they went one up. Apart from TV, they said laptop, mixer, grinder, thali, etc., etc. So I showed all those data and I said, where are we going? But you'll be surprised to know the Supreme Court dismissed the writ petition. You know on what grounds? They said by giving color TVs to people, Tamil Nadu government is educating the women of Tamil Nadu who are working at home. The directive principles of state policy says state shall promote education of the masses, and this is a way of promoting the education, which I thought is a completely bizarre judgment. Now, to Justice Gogoi and Justice Saraswati, we issued notice to election commission came, and my argument was, why can't the election commission say that there will be no freebies? I said beyond BPL, that's roti kapda makan, apart from the basic necessities, nothing of value should be given. And I quoted a number of US Supreme Court judgments which have declared unconstitutional. You see, sorry to digress, Article 282 of the Constitution says, all money shall be spent only for public purposes. What is public purpose? And there are very good US judgments, 2 judgments are there, which say that you can never use government money to create private assets. You can use government money to create public assets. It can be community TVs, it can be computers in classrooms and so on, but it can never be assets in the hands of private individuals. Public money can never be used to create private assets. But that judgment also was not followed, and today technically freebie is constitutionally valid because of this judgment, Subramanian Balaji judgment. So unless the Representation of People Act is amended, we've got a very serious problem. Why I'm raising this point is, when I saw the figures, you can have any amount of budgetary planning, everything is going to go alright in the near future, in the years ahead. That's the second point I wanted to mention. Now come back to the direct taxes code. Now the proposal is to have a new direct taxes code. I don't know to laugh or to cry. I never understood how making a new law is a solution to your problem. After 45 years in the bar, I've seen this again and again. You replace Companies Act 56 with Companies Act 230. You replace Central Excise Rules 1944 with Central Excise Rules 2002. You replace X Act with Y Act. But it is the same thing. Like it says in Julius Caesar, the problem is not in our staff but in us. So the problem is not in the law, it's within us. Now, if you see the Direct Taxes Code Bill of 2010, same thing. Surprisingly, Pranab Mukherjee mentioned that our income tax has become very complicated. Even chartered accountants and lawyers can't understand it. And therefore, I'm going to make a simple law. Now, I spoke to some people, I said, if you're going to have same salary, house property, capital gains, transfer pricing, profits and gains on business, then why have a new act? Unless you go to something revolutionary, like flat tax or something, it's not going to serve the purpose. But I'm told that there is a great attempt at simplification of direct taxes. And I'll tell you one lesson which Ramamani told me. He said, you cannot have a simple tax law. And that's truth. You take the IR, Indian Revenue Code, or you take the US whatever provision, tax law will necessarily be complicated because whatever law you make, the chartered accountant and the lawyer will try to find a loophole, that will be plugged, there will be one more loophole, that will be plugged, it will keep on going that way. So, perhaps, as he's right, a simple tax law is an oxymoron, it's not possible. So there is no point wasting time in trying to find a simple tax law. Better to have the same Income Tax Act. The difficulty is not with the Income Tax Act, the difficulty is with the administration. Are you going to stop mindless reopening of assessments? Answer is no. Just look at this year's direct tax bill. Subject to correction, my memory says that there are 86 clauses amend direct taxes. I think first 85 or 84 are acts, and then you amended Rule 68 of the second schedule. So 86 amendments to the Income Tax Act alone in this budget. Now suppose you have the direct tax code in 2025. If you take the track record, if you apply simple regressive analysis as per statistical methods, and if the average amendments are 50-60, then your 2025 direct taxes code is going to be amended 300 times in the next 5 years. Why waste your time and energy? So my request is the Madras Chamber, if you have got the courage, please make a representation and say, please no direct taxes code. When the parliamentary committee comes, you make in your application to represent to the committee, and if it's not going to be a new law, please don't replace it. It's like this IPC and Evidence Act. Section 302 is now 150 of this unpronounceable Bharatiya something. You know? So, My request is that we should hope that the direct taxes code doesn't come. Companies Act 2013 came. All of you are in large companies. Has it simplified anything? No, it's not possible. That's the point. Second point which I was looking for eagerly was the faceless assessments and faceless appeals. You see, the problems are not in these sections. The problems are in the actual implementation. I just mentioned 3 points and I'll move on because my friends have to speak. We requested, we made a representation that please avoid faceless assessment for large assessments. Today, 2 categories don't have faceless. Right? One is those who go on the central circle and the other is international taxation. Apart from that, subject to correction, everybody else goes on faceless. Now, if the object was to ensure avoidance of interaction with the officer and with the hope that this will eliminate any kind of irregularity, then the answer is sadly no. It has not worked. So, our representation was at least listed companies or those who have a turnover of 5 crores, because they will be loss-making companies, so profit may not be a yardstick. If a turnover is more than 5 crores, have a faceless assessment. Today with computers, your AI and so on and so forth, you can easily find out how many companies, SSCs are there whose turnover is more than 5 crores. If that is too many, then make it 10. So at least have a scrutiny of those companies, allow them the right to appear in person and explain their case. I know horror stories where large companies have been given hearing for 30 minutes, 40 minutes and the entire assessment is closed and large-scale disallowances are being made. Faceless appeal is a more serious issue than faceless assessments. And this is where I want people like Madras Chamber to make representations to the government. 5 lakh appeals are pending. Now, those of you who have appeared as advocates, as chartered accountants, can you imagine arguing before a white screen and there's a judge behind? Is it possible? I mean, you must be, I don't know, I mean, you must have a single-digit IQ to expect that you can argue an appeal, a complicated appeal, with a person who you can't see. Advocacy consists of seeing the judge, his eye movement, his body language, what point ticks with him, what point doesn't tick with him, how you plan your strategy. If it doesn't like a point, you go on to the next point, you come back to the same point. All these things we have learned from our gurus. Advocacy is a great skill. It all depends on knowing who the person is. So faceless assessment, I would request, and faceless appeals at least, if Chambers of Commerce can make a request and say that please don't have faceless appeals. This was a very serious problem which I thought would receive some attention at this budget, which has not taken place. Other thing which I want to be addressed is this issue of significant economic presence. The threshold is too low. This budget, what they have said, if you buy goods from India, then it will not apply. Why not if you simply supply out of India, why only purchase? And this constant thing of every foreign person to file an income tax return again is bizarre. If he has no taxable income in India, he is not covered because of treaty or otherwise, why should he file a return in India? So these are the points which I thought we can still highlight. We know that major changes are made between the date of the bill and the date of the act. Entire equalization levy was added on the last day, so it's not unknown to us. So we can really hope for, I would say, request that DTC should not be there. That will of course be so much water on the duck's back, but no harm in making the plea. And faceless appeals at least should go, and something should be done about this significant economic presence has to be addressed. Now let me come to GST and I on indirect taxes. On the GST issue, of course, K.Vaitheeswaran will deal with it in detail. If you see the GST Council meeting, first of all, one major problem is the meetings are not held on the scheduled dates, which I think is a serious. If you can have board meetings every 3 months, why can't the GST Council, which collects 16 lakh crores, meet as per the scheduled dates? I know people who say that the minutes come 48 hours in advance or 24 hours in advance, 300, 400 page minutes with a binder and you can't follow. I think the GST Council should have, meetings should be taken far more seriously than they are now. It should not be a formality. Much was made. See, my ideas are music to your ears. No worry, no worry.
Brother is still watching.
Big brother is watching. Yes.
Somebody switched on channel music.
So one thing was the GST Council meeting should have more. We have made some number of suggestions, but virtually nothing is considered. And one problem which I've been crying out like a broken record again and again and again is this monomaniacal focus on revenue maximization. Like Arjuna saw that eye of the fish. All you see is the fish's eye, which is your revenue, how much money I'm losing, regardless of what is the collateral damage you're doing by focusing only on this. I'll give a simple example. I have never understood why cement should be at 28%. If you want to promote infrastructure on states, if you want to promote affordable housing, what is the purpose of having cement at 28% and works contract at 18%? It makes no sense. And look at the consequences. Today, if you take the statistics, I was just flying down and I was reading a business paper. Affordable housing has gone down by 38%. Houses below 20 lakhs, the demand has gone, or 25 lakhs, has gone down by 38%. Which, these things we should not forget. These are all the small dots which are the warning signs. Just as you get these small aches and pains which you ignore at your peril in personal health, these are all the small warning signs which you cannot ignore. Sale of so many consumer goods have gone down. Now, if 28% is a tax on cement, and if you want to promote infrastructure and roads, then it's not going to happen at all. So I've been pleading, our committee has been pleading, that there must be some empirical data. Now in economics, we've all studied demand and supply, elasticity of demand and so on. Is there some kind of stimulative study to do that if I reduce the duty on cement from 28 to 18, what could be the potential increase in the output? What could be there'll be a loss of revenue, yes, short-term loss, but what would be the gain? Take motorcycles, if you want to reduce the duty, soft drinks, 53%, 48%, if you bring it down, will the demand increase and will you actually make more money? If direct tax is an indication, then a reduction in indirect tax duty will definitely stimulate the demand. Instead of writing off 12 lakhs income, which affects the middle class, there's still the man who's not an income tax assessee, his problems are not addressed. He's still paying extremely high rates of GST for so many things. Right? How many steps have been taken? Not a single step has been taken for rate rationalization. There was a lot of joke about this popcorn, caramel being 28% and 18%. That is just a symptom. Forget about the popcorn. But the point is, this complicated thing continuously is a problem. Now, the other major danger sign, which is, you see, I keep saying sometimes that if you have these tax laws in this way, then they become investment repellents. They repel investment. People say one good thing they did was reducing the income tax from 10 years to 5 years, the reopening of assessment from 10 years to 5 years. One German company person told me, when it was 10 years, he said, if my year is ending on 31/3/2023, then up to 33, I don't know whether my assessment is closed. And that's a serious problem. You see, everybody wants certainty. At the end of 5 years, it is the end of the road. I don't have to worry about it. The chapter is closed. Now, coming to this, the most dangerous and an unfortunate thing with the budget which has gone unnoticed is the retrospective amendment has come back as a policy, as a rule rather than the exception. I remember in 2014, when this government first came to power, late Arun Jaitley said retrospective taxation is tax terrorism. That is a phrase coined by late Mr. Jaitley. Honorable Prime Minister on more than one occasion has said that retrospective taxation is to be avoided, it is not a good thing. But there have been a number of cases in the last 2-3 years where retrospective taxation is become the norm. And I'll tell you one case where I was personally involved, safari retreats. Now what was this case? And I'll tell you why this is a danger sign and we should all protest against it. It's not that because we won the case and now we are saying crying foul. It's on a larger philosophy, it's a larger principle. There is we talk of constitutional morality, but I think there is something also called tax morality. If you are going to levy me 18% tax, 28% tax on my output, then I believe that it is tax morality to allow me all the credit of the inputs which I use to make that output. You can't say I tax the output, but I will disallow the input, like your 43D. All income is mercantile based, but all expenditure is cash based. That may have some reason, but this is the way doesn't work. Now take this safari retreat. There is a rule that immovable property is not goods and services. The GST is on goods and services. And the definition of goods is every kind of movable property. So immovable property is not goods. There is a section. So if you put up this hotel, for example, or you put up a commercial complex and you give it on rent, today the rent of the commercial building is taxable as GST, but no input credit is allowed. For the life of me, with all my 4 decades of experience, I do not know how leasing of an immovable property can amount to a service. Under section 105 of the Transfer of Property Act, it is a transfer of interest in the property. A lease can never be subject to GST or service tax. It can be subject to tax by the corporation or by the state under entry 49 of list 2, tax on land and buildings. Yes, but not on GST. But that is the law. It has been upheld by some high courts. It's pending in the Supreme Court. Back to my issue of retrospective taxation. Now, the larger problem was, I had appeared for logistic warehouses. Now today, warehouses, those who are in the logistics business are extremely sophisticated. Some are fully air conditioned, they are computer controlled, they are temperature controlled, humidity controlled. These are all warehouses which are highly sophisticated, but they are fixed to the earth. Now the rent of the logistic warehouse is liable to tax, GST. And without going into detail, we took the strategy of saying that, look, it used the word plant or machinery. We said if it's a plant for income tax purposes, it should also be a plant for GST and I should get my inputs. So after discussing everything, the Supreme Court agreed with us, saying yes, plant or machinery is different from plant and machinery. Wherever it is a plant, where it's a structure, like say a logistic warehouse, a cooling tower, not just a commercial building, but an industrial building which has got an industrial, it's what the Supreme Court called the functionality test. If it has an important function in your manufacturing process, then it should be allowed as a risk. Now, the Supreme Court said, yes, but now the law amended by saying that or and was a typographical mistake. You had a law for 7 years and it's a typographical mistake, and which is also false because we showed the GST Council's meetings where it was deliberately put as or and not as and. Anyway, we won the case last year, now we are losing it retrospectively from 1/7/2017. Now some clients ask me, what is the point in fighting? If I fight and say an issue on royalties there or an important controversial issue is there, and I succeed up to the Supreme Court, pay lawyers' fees, days in, tax managers go to Delhi, come back, fight, it goes on. The safari retreat went on to 7 days, hotly contested. And then when you lose, you say no, we'll amend the law retrospectively. In my humble opinion, what is the most abhorrent about the retrospective amendment is the disrespect you show to your own Supreme Court. You tell the world, we have a Supreme Court, every citizen has a right to fight for justice, but if he gets justice, if we feel it is not justice, we will undo it and take it back to 2017. In Vodafone it went to 1962. And the government has not learned. Vodafone amended from 1462. You destroyed India's reputation and investment destination. No extra tax was collected. On the other hand, through the international treaty, you had to pay 8,000 crores as damages as compensation to K in India. And why are you doing it again? And just imagine, if you're going to tax logistics, cooling towers, industrial structures, just because they are fixed to the earth, if you're going to disallow GST, that much of your cost goes up, you become that much more uncompetitive. So instead of doing a knee-jerk reaction, they should have perhaps done some analysis. Which are the structures which are getting the benefit? What is the tax loss? If I'm ultimately going to get 80-90 crores, is it worth miring in the mud the reputation of India, where respect for the law is not there? Retrospective taxation, yes, but only if larger public interest is involved. So I felt very pained by this because I thought that we had closed this chapter behind us. Now, any important judgment which we succeed, today we got a judgment in the Supreme Court saying telecom towers we got a benefit in Bharti Airtel's case. They were amended retrospectively. That's a big question people are asking. You make it prospective, or at least you give a budget memorandum saying, look, this has resulted in 8,000 crores or 10,000 crores of lost revenue. This was never intended, this is against public interest, I understand. Nothing. Typographical mistake, therefore we are amending. So I've gone on with the budget. I didn't want to get into the individual sections because Vikram and K.Vaitheeswaran are going to deal with those sections. But I just wanted to express to you that these are the points. And I do feel that Madras Chamber, like other chambers of commerce, must get into the vanguard and speak up, make up your representations. Government does listen. Say, for example, I've been fighting charitable trusts. I never understood the proviso to 2 subsection 15. How does any charitable institution, now the law is if you get more than 20% of income other than donation, then you get hit. Which institution can run 80% on donations? It cannot. And many institutions are so badly hit by these amendments. That also has not been addressed in this budget. So I would just conclude by thanking Madras Chamber for inviting me. And I would say that whatever your points are, please set it down. And now, last point I'm going to mention of manufacture. There is a national manufacturing mission. See, it's very nice to start these missions. The only thing is, what is the follow-up action? I remember in Pranab Mukherjee's budget, para 100, I still remember para 100, was national legal mission. There was a legal mission to eliminate arrears. They said India has got too many arrears. Legal mission to eliminate arrears. There will be no arrears in 5 years. This is like, I'll go on a diet and I'll get a 6-pack in 3 months and so on. It's never going to happen unless you really work for it. Now, National Manufacturing Mission, all the Madras Chamber, I spoke at a seminar in Bhopal. Now, I said ease of doing business. At this point, I'm just working on an article and I'll put it across to the audience. Ease of doing business is easy to talk. In my view, after so many years of practice, ease of doing business is not just having an IBC code or having something and going up the rankings and all that. That's not ease of doing business. Ease of doing business, in my view, has 3 components. Ease of starting a business, ease of running a business, and ease of closing a business. If you want to have a manufacturing ecosystem, and I put it in an equation, I call it EB is equal to ES plus ER plus EC. So the aggregate of starting plus running plus closing will be the ease of doing business. And if you go to ease of starting a business, I've done it my own way, I studied it. 80% of the work at the starting stage is in the state list. your licenses, your permissions, your permits, pollution, etc. all come in the state list. Once you go to the running stage, once you take off and start running, then 85% is in the central list. Your income tax, your GST, your other laws, company laws, SEBI, this, that and so on. So we have, and I told at Bhopal, I said, take an industry, I said, do a pilot plant. Say tomorrow, let somebody spend 50 lakhs, 20 lakhs, doesn't matter. Say I want to start, let's say a cable plant, hypothetically. Apply to the government. How much time does it take to get clearances to start a 10 crore factory? And if you get all the pain points, the blocks, it's like having, you almost like doing a angio. You put the dye through your blood and you know where the blocks are. So in the same way, you put your thing on the stream and you know where the blocks are. Same running a business. You can identify the blocks. I've spoken to leading people in the top companies. They said that the number of compliances have gone up astronomically with no use at all. The same reports we are getting again and again. Whether it's SEBI or your regulators, it's just again and again. And the last point, which is the elephant in the room, is ease of closing a business, which has not been. In manufacture, if you're doing manufacturing, it necessarily involves investment. Statistically, 6 out of 10 businesses will not succeed. The Darwinian theory will apply. Now, these must have an exit clause. Ford of Taloja, Ford plant, could not close Taloja for 6.5 years. And they had to keep paying salaries to the people. Now, this is talked about in the investment circles abroad. So, unless you have an exit strategy, like for example, you have to delete 25 FFF of the Industrial Disputes Act, various labor laws here, I won't go to get into that. But there should be an assessment. What are the hurdles to closing a business? How we can eliminate them? So, if your national manufacturing mission is going to take off, then you must get extensive inputs, and people, industries who are members of Madras Chamber can be in the forefront and say, look, if I want to start a business, these are 46 permissions, 26 are not necessary. For closing, this is the problem. So this is one example I'm giving you. So the government has announced it's a very good step, national manufacturing mission, and as citizens, as responsible corporates, we should take it on ourselves to make it a roaring success. In the end, we will never become Viksit Bharat or Atmanirbhar Bharat. It's very easy to talk, make in India, vocal for local. All these slogans are very good. But how do you actually implement it on the ground? It is the small, little attention to detail which will ultimately lead you to the problem. Take Kaizen. You make small steps every day and you get to the goal. So, thank you so much for giving me a patient hearing. And I really hope, another thing, I personally feel we should aim for 2047. Let's set goals 5 years at a time. What will we do in 2029 and come back? And last point I'll tell you, what today pained me the most, yesterday when I was going through the paper, and I just, this person, I'll close with this. After 75 years of independence, we supply free food to 80 crore people out of 140 crore. Can you believe this? 59% of India, after 75 years, requires free food. So obviously they can't earn enough to get themselves that food. This is a very, very embarrassing fact in my opinion. And what I feel is, instead of talking of GST collections, let us say in 2029, 80 crores will feed only 60, 20 will be on their own. We don't need to help them. That should be the target. In our GST council meet, I keep on saying, don't tell me how much GST collection you have. Tell me how many new factories have started. That's what I want to know, not how much GST collection you have. Don't tell me of 5 trillion economy. What's your per capita income? These are the yardsticks we have. Thank you so much. I spoke, perhaps I spoke a bit too long, but I'm really concerned that if we don't make radical changes, see, there is a point where there's a tipping point where you can't go back. You don't know when that tipping point will come. And as the problems grow, it will be more and more difficult to catch up. Let's hope 2025 is a new beginning, and let's hope Madras Chamber is the leader in that beginning.